promoting the free exchange of ideas, questioning the status quo, and having some fun along the way. This is the Are We Idiots Show. Now here are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Rich Kroll.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the special year in review episode of the Are We Idiots Show. As always, we are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Richard Kroll.
What is with this new voice, with the high pitch?
We are entertainers.
What is? Are you trying to audition for voice makeovers? What is that roller coaster pitch you just started the show?
We are part of the digital media revolution, Rich, and we have to entertain and edutain our audience.
Please don't talk to me that way the rest of the night.
By the way, Rich, in your past, you've had access to friends that are bookies. So what would the odds have been that we would make 38 episodes? If you're going back in February when we started, what were the odds of the bookmakers on that we would make it through 38 episodes?
400 to 1 against any shot of doing that.
But we did it, and we're having a special year-end edition of the Are We Idiots Show. Any words of wisdom or tip of the day before we start the show?
Well,
Richie?
I'm not doing the weather. By the way, it's the
Good.
holiday. I love the holiday season. You know, mostly for Christians. God bless you if you're Jewish. I know Hanukkah's great, but it's not Christmas. So let's be honest. This is a great time of year. I'm thankful. We already gave thanks at Thanksgiving. Here's my tip of the day. I eat quite a bit of eggs during the year, and I make them myself a lot. I'm pretty darn good at making omelets, and I was getting bored. Let me tell you, people, especially with the holiday season, I think there's more families making eggs, Christmas morning, New Year's morning, just, you have off. The families are spending time together through the week. Put a tablespoon of seltzer water, soda water, for every egg. Whip your egg really, really, really well. I mean, the first
And it fluffs it up?
it fluffs it up. So 2 steps. First of all, don't just half-ass mixing your egg together. When you put the eggs in your bowl, whip them till your elbow's sore. Get the bubbles in there. That's part of the whipping process.
Get Tommy John surgery after you're done.
Get Tommy John surgery after you're done whipping your eggs. Don't use milk or cream or regular tap
no one does
water
that.
or even spring water. Put a tablespoon of soda water for every egg. You'll have the best fluffy omelet or scrambled eggs you ever had.
No more calories, though, but not with the seltzer. There's no calories.
Oh, make sure it's not flavored seltzer.
Cream soda seltzer. How awful would that be? All right, so folks, we're going to have our year-end edition. We're going to do Idiots of the Week, even though we're going to talk about Idiots of the Year later on. But since we had a couple of listeners send in some nominees, we're going to do current day Idiots of the Week awards. We'll do that quickly. And then we're going to talk about the 2018 year in review. And we're going to do that kind of at a high level with the world, the big things in the world, and then in the U.S. And then we're going to talk about the year in review of our show and share some of our favorite moments. And then at the very end, I'm going to do a little tease we're calling it Are We Idiots .20.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to take your clothes off.
No, thank the Lord we're not doing that.
Not that type of tease.
And by the way, Rich, I feel, I'm a libertarian. I guess it's been clear over the 38 episodes.
Please educate everybody.
And we're a little bit nonconformist. But doing a year in review show, for me, it gives me I'm kind of conforming to all media outlets do these year in review shows. So at its base, I feel a little dirty doing a year in review show. It seems too conforming. Don't you think we're conforming to what media does?
Listen, some traditions are good, even if they're dirty.
But anyhow, we're going to do it anyhow. All right, Richie. So here we go for nominees that were sent in by our loyal listeners. First one, and this was a tweet from the New York Police Department. Wanted for dropping his fiance's ring in Times Square. She said yes, but he was so excited that he dropped the ring in a grate. Our special ops officers rescued it and would like to return it to the happy couple. Please help us find them. So they actually had a video. They have videos everywhere in Times Square. And they show this guy dropping it in the grate and kneeling and looking down. And the couple went off. They never filed a police report. And the cops saw it, I guess, and went down, got it. And then they put out this tweet to try to help find it. And it was an English couple that actually got it back. So it was the moral of the story is, hey, once in a while, a surveillance state, how much I hate the surveillance state of the big government, but that actually worked out in this case. So that's nominee number one is this guy who was so nervous. He proposed in Times Square over a grate.
Well, time out.
Yeah.
Right. So right away, folks, I gave tip of the day. Let me give you a tip of the engagement year. Don't ever try to hand your soon-to-be fiance a ring in a hot air balloon under the Niagara Falls, skydiving, or skiing. Right, over a grate. What is the guy? A complete moron?
In a quarry.
Don't do it in a quarry. Don't do it over quicksand. Don't do it while surfing. There's small rules that help you get that ring on her finger.
I will say this though: there was a clever retort on Twitter. The one listener on Twitter one tweeter said, should have put a string on it. Like, the Beyonce song, Put a Ring on It.
Yeah.
Should have put a string on it.
Very clever.
That's pretty
Very
good.
clever.
A lot more clever than I am. All right. So that's nominee number one. Nominee number two, which my guess is you might have a preference for. Again, sent in by a listener. Greensburg, PA. Police say a Pennsylvania man released from jail immediately stole a car from its parking lot.
What else would you do?
Westmoreland County Prison says moments after Thomas Lee Williams was released, he attacked a woman in the parking lot Tuesday evening and stole her car with the victim's 1-year-old, this is actually kind of serious, 1-year-old in the back seat. The Tribune reported Williams crashed about 15 minutes later and ran into the woods where he was apprehended. The woman and baby were fine. But again, shockingly, the guy didn't have a lawyer to represent him.
Does that count as breaking your parole? I mean, do you have like a 10-minute free pass that you can do whatever you want?
Special dispensation.
Until you actually. How about visiting your wife or your kids, or how about going to church? How about, really, that's the first thing you do out of jail?
When I read that, I thought about Shawshank Redemption, where Morgan Freeman, he doesn't think he can make it in the real world, so he's thinking about committing a crime to go back in. Maybe that's what this guy's thing was. But
maybe it was a nice jail.
There was a too tempting in the parking lot to avoid. So those are my nominees, Richie. Which one do you like for our Idiot of the Week?
Well,
he's
it's
deep
kind
in
of
thought.
close.
He's
Kinda
very
close.
deep in thought.
Hey, look, nervous kid, just blinded by love, doesn't really take into the
magnitude of what he's doing.
magnitude of what he's doing. Or maybe he did actually.
That's why he's shaking like
he
a
crapped
leaf.
his pants.
We could have given him some pointers.
But stay out of the street. Don't be over a gutter or a grate. That's just a nervous kid making a mistake. If you've already been in jail, which I hear is not too enjoyable, the first thing you do is go see a priest. Go get a cup of coffee. Go visit your mother, your father, your wife, your kids. You don't just immediately commit another crime. So I'm going to go with Tommy
Lee Hooker. No, Tommy Lee Williams. And by the way, Tommy Lee's already back in jail, so I don't think you'll be able to send him any money, but maybe you can send it to the grandmother and the baby. All right. So now we're going to talk about 2018, the year in review. And as it's been clear on these episodes, we're based in the Pennsylvania area. The first thing I thought about in 2018 is rain. There's been rain everywhere in where we live.
There's no difference between Philadelphia and Seattle.
But for our listeners who could be anywhere, we probably won't go into that. But let's talk about the world, the big events in the world in 2018, Richie. And I have a political bent in a lot of ways and an economic bent. So I'm gonna throw out there the rise of authoritarianism.
I don't even know what that means.
It's a long word. How many letters is that? But certainly we're seeing it with China. And for those of you not paying attention, President Xi, spelled Xi, Xi, I don't know how you get that. It's like Shishevsky. How do you get that from that spelling?
You don't.
But anyhow, he made himself president for life in China, so he's a dictator. Certainly in Turkey, Erdogan is also basically a quasi-dictator. We know Vladimir Putin is a dictator in Russia. He can come and go as he pleases as the president there. This Durante, I forget the guy's name, the president of the Philippines, he actually has hit squads killing drug dealers. He's a dictator. So this rise of authoritarianism, and it kind of relates to the other piece, which is the nationalism piece, and Trump himself refers to himself as a nationalist. So democracy, liberal democracy is kind of on the decline worldwide, and authoritarianism and nationalism is on the rise. And what does that mean to you? And is that dangerous? Is that good? What do you think?
It's very dangerous. I mean, we've proven through our data and some of our shows that we've discussed that dictatorships, communism, authoritarianism, however you pronounce that stupid word. Authoritarianism is not a good thing, right? Because you impose your will, whatever your belief system is, on your people. You typically create a scenario where everybody's afraid to do whatever they want or say whatever they want. There's no free speech.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
You can get killed on a whim. You can be imprisoned. You can be no. It's a terrible thing. Although President Xi, how does he appoint himself lifetime president? Picture this: you get hired. We're in sales, right? You get hired, and after you get hired, you sign the paperwork and you say, "Boss, listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to work for you. You seem like a great guy, a great company. I just want to let you know, I am now going to work for you for the rest of my life. I am now your sales rep for the rest of your career and my career for the history of the company."
Well, my guess is that he's able to do that through fear. Like all dictators, they utilize fear, and you get to an inflection point in the country where people are too afraid to speak up. And it all starts with free speech, which is why our first show was about free speech, because it's by far the most important. Once you lose the ability to speak and a free press, it's a very steep or slippery slope to dictatorship. So my guess is that fear really got to a point in China where he had so much power that people were afraid to go up against him. I guess that's what happened.
We could go into a whole dissertation.
Same thing in Turkey, by the way.
Whole dissertation about how this even happens. But when the people lose power, that's a product or a byproduct of the type of government you have, which goes back to, yes, democracy, even with all our flaws, still must be the best system because there's so many checks and balances that prevent something like that from happening. So I put it on the people. That's why there's rebellions and civil wars and government takeovers if the people can come together. But it's terrible, and it's not good for the world.
And that's why I'm such a crazed person when it comes to checking the power of our government, because they have the monopoly on the use of force, legal use of force. You really have to beware of them utilizing that power for evil, and that's what transparency is for. That's what free speech, free press is for. So that's that. So relatedly, you've seen this trend, and Trump is a big part of that, in protectionism from an economic standpoint. You knew I had to get economics in here.
You had to.
So these trade tariffs are going up. They're all over the world all the time, but they've gotten worse in the last year. In 2018, it's definitely a tariff man has come out. So protectionism is the antithesis of, if I can say that, the antithesis of free market capitalism. So I know we've had some text strings going back and forth a lot about tariffs. So what do you think about tariffs and protectionism? I know you're not as crazed about it as I am, but that's also been a trend this year.
Try to say authoritarianism antithesis.
Authoritarianism antithesis.
Say that 3 times. No. Yeah, you can't. Okay. Well, here's the deal. You've made it evidently clear that you hate tariffs. The tariffs are not good. You've explained why tariffs are not good. So I think in a perfect world, we'd have no tariffs, right? No country would have any tariffs, which is better for the consumers, better for keeping costs down. But, in a big but, once there are tariffs, is the best way to fight tariffs, to impose tariffs, to try to at least get world leaders to come to a table and try to get rid of them. Without that, it'll never happen. So I'm wondering, I'm not a huge Trump fan. I think he's done some good things, but maybe his crazy tactics are getting world leaders to sit down and renegotiate deals that are not good for the U.S. or are slanted in favor of these foreign countries. If they can ultimately help the consumer keep prices down, because you've explained to all of us ad nauseum how tariffs actually
raise
costs.
Input costs and prices to consumers.
It enables and allows manufacturers to raise their costs. So
look, if the argument is that the U.S. economy is strong enough to endure pain, economic pain, more than the Chinese economy, that's true. But I don't think the leader of the largest economy in the world should be inflicting pain on everyone to try to win a, quote, trade war to address trade imbalances, which are all part of comparative advantage. This is not an economic show, but I just think he's misguided in that.
You might be right, but let's
to save specific jobs and hurt 95% of the other people, that just doesn't make sense.
Soften you up by agreeing with you. I'm going to do a whole seminar for your family. How do you get your husband and father to listen? First, agree with him, and then he's more prone to listen to you. So let's start with, we agree with you. Tariffs are bad. Now,
right. Now what?
Now what if China has tariffs and other countries have tariffs and we don't? Is the best way, unfortunately, to take a step backwards and have a tariff versus tariff war to try to get what we really want and deserve.
And my argument would be, no, it's not the best, because in the interim, you're hurting 90% of the people in both sides. And you could probably accomplish it by using leverage of teaming up with the European Union, with Japan, with Korea, all the countries around the world who agree that China's not playing fair, but you can use leverage and ostracize them. There's lots of different ways you can team up and try to single them out and corner them and use leverage against them rather than hurting consumers in the process.
But isn't that so much more complicated with so many more moving parts and trying to talk to different countries with different cultures and different belief systems and get everybody on the same page? And some people might be afraid to oppose a big, bad China. I mean, I think Trump just took a simplified, knuckleheaded approach.
He's playing bully ball.
But sometimes bully ball works.
Well, evidently he thinks so, but I disagree. Okay, we got to move on.
Let's see how that plays out.
All right. The last one before we come to the United States is NATO and kind of this. This is a big, heady subject, so maybe we don't want to go too far into it. But this weakening of the West, the post-World War II order of the United States-led alliance of Western Europe, NATO, and the weakening.
What does NATO stand for?
North American Treaty Organization.
Thank you.
And now you see UK Prime Minister May with the Brexit thing. She's weakened. Angela Merkel in Germany is weakened. In France, they're rioting in the streets. So the French President Macron is now weakened.
Did you just do a French accent
I did.
right there?
Wasn't that good?
That was good.
But anyhow, what do you think about that? Is the nationalism that has been Trump's touted, and certainly the Brexit drove nationalism was part of Brexit. France, you're seeing it. Do you think that that's going to decay the NATO bloc even further?
Nah, nobody cares. I mean, let's be.
You don't care.
I don't care. I don't even know what you're talking about. Nobody listening cares. Here's why. Last time I checked, we're still driving around in our nice cars to our nice homes, to our vacation homes or our family's vacation homes. We're drinking scotch and we're wearing ascots and we're wearing smoking jackets and we're smoking Cuban cigars.
We are Americans.
We are Americans, people, and we don't give a crap about NATO and every other European nation.
Well, some people do.
Maybe we did 100 years ago when our forefathers came here. But
right,
the reality is nobody even thinks about this stuff.
Well, I do. But anyhow, I'm an outlier.
You
I know
are a
that.
true outlier.
All right, so we'll put that on the back burner for the 2019 show in
Thank
review.
you.
All right,
the audience thanks you.
So big trends in the U.S., and I know you're going to have lots of commentary around this. So Trump, he's been in our living room, in our phones, in our minds. He's been all consuming every day in 2018. It's really draining. Whether you're for him or against him, he's just omnipresent.
That's a good word.
So what do you think about our ignominious President Trump, and what was his year like in 2018?
I got to say this. I give him credit. He hasn't really been dominating or monopolizing the news in the last
24 hours? I mean, come on. Everywhere.
He hasn't pissed me off or caused... I know when something crazy
His lawyer went to, as we taped this, his lawyer went to prison for 3 years yesterday.
I think everyone's numb to it. The point is, when he does or says something really crazy or controversial, I can tell because there's multiple text groups that start flying back and forth.
I think the text group thing, they're all tired too.
Well, to me, that's either a good or bad sign. But he hasn't done anything so egregious or said anything so insane that people that love him are supporting and people that hate him are. So in some ways, he's been out of mind, out of sight, out of mind a little bit. At least the most I've seen him out of sight, out of mind the last. Last month. But
I'm not sure you're paying attention because yesterday his lawyer went to prison, his personal fixer went to prison or got sentenced to prison, and then the National Enquirer admitted to paying off Karen McDougal or whatever the Playboy bunny's name was to help him win the election. I mean,
but that's not a big deal.
No one cares about that, like
Nobody
NATO?
cares about it either. Throw that in with NATO.
So we're an apathetic nation about all subjects at this point?
Almost have to be. I'll tell you, here's
so
the
why
deal.
do we even have a show?
Maybe this will be the last show.
Year in review.
Final year in review. Here's the deal. Does paying off a Playboy buddy really get half of America to say, oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump? People were going to vote for Trump. They already knew he was a lunatic. They already knew he shell-shocked Atlantic City. All his misappropriations with women. His wife knows that he's a nut. I mean, look, we elected him because we were hoping...
It's not illegal to sleep with a porn star. We learned that from Bill Clinton.
Who cares if he pays her? Nobody. It's again.
But it's a campaign financing. If you're using your money and not disclosing it to affect an election, that's the potential crime.
My point. Did it really affect the election?
If that had come out after the Access Hollywood tape a month or so before, if that had come out 2 weeks prior, which is what she was planning to do, 2 weeks prior to the election, it might have made a difference. I mean, he barely won. He won electorally as a landslide, but it was like 50,000 votes in Michigan.
You, and the whole country get so far off the tracks on what's important. Listen, do I think moral fiber is important? So if a guy's doing all that, he's probably not going to have good character in the office? Yes. That's why I didn't vote for him. But at the same time, I can't worry what a guy does with women and paying people off to not talk about his being with women. That's not the United States and us versus Russia and us versus China and the economy and jobs and education. That's a personal problem.
Right. I agree with you. I don't think the presidency should be a moral job. It's a skills job. It's not a moral. I don't think he's a moral leader. I don't think any president should be a moral leader. A lot of people used to pin that on presidents, but I want to desanctify the presidency and all our leaders. I think they get too much power and too much praise as it is. So I'm with you on that part.
All the far left tree-hugging microaggressionists are always looking for something to stick their claws in. This is not one that they should. Find something real.
All right. So the next trend, I think you would agree, and this is one of your favorite subjects, social media. And with the whole Facebook, Russia election stuff, I mean, social media is a big part of our lives. You and I both agree, probably it's a net negative to society, but it's here to stay. So what do you think about social media in 2018? Obviously, the Facebook, Russia election stuff, we don't need to go into a lot of detail about that, but just more generally, the scourge of social media on our society, it's grown in 2018. What are your thoughts on that?
Social media is like anything entertaining that, when used in moderation, is positive. But when used incorrectly, can go out of whack and land you in a rehab center, right? So smoking pot, okay. Drinking alcohol, okay. Betting a football game, okay. But,
shooting heroin, okay.
Shooting heroin, okay. Listen, if you do it in the privacy of your own home or with some friends and you're obeying the law, God bless you. When you go crazy with it and AWOL and go loony on everybody, then you get arrested and ruin your life and ruin your family and ruin your finances. Same thing with social media. In its context, it's a good thing. We use it at my company.
Right.
I'm now using it, and it's really helpful. It spreads the word instantly. Again, social media can be a great thing. It's a time saver. It's a way to mass market. It's a way to mass get your message out there. But it's addictive, and it's turning our millennials into idiots, and everyone's sitting around the dinner table staring at their phone. Nobody knows how to talk. It's ruining communication skills. It's ruining a lot of things because people have to check their phone. And I'm to blame sometimes. I'm always worried about something coming in from a friend or from work or something I need.
Or from me even.
Well, I blocked you a long time ago. But I watch it. Older people seem to be able to go cold turkey. Like I just I'll leave my phone in the car. I will not take my phone when I go to dinner with you.
Me either.
Good, but
it's a pact.
But some people very close to me could not.
Right.
And I'm not talking about my wife, but some other people, their phone has to be with them. It has to be next to their bed. It has to be in their car. It has to be when they go take it into the bathroom.
Right.
So
now, I guess, and what people don't realize is that, and you and I have a tech background, so we know this, but these apps are purposely programmed, and I guess it's dopamine. Is that the
dopamine,
brain?
Correct.
Right. That brings that out, and they're purposely
the pleasure center in the brain.
Right. They're purposely made to be addictive, and I don't think people guard against that, because if they were taking something else that that's commonly known to be addictive, they would be very guarded about using it. But people don't do that with their phones. They're addictive properties that are programmed in on purpose, and that's
predictive properties programmed. You're right. Surgeon General is going to have to come out with a warning on the back of everybody's phone.
I think that might happen someday, especially for kids. I think you could see kids' apps are probably going to have some kind of warning or click through.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm partially joking, but I'm not. That's why there's laws against texting and driving.
Right.
I don't know how many people I'm behind wondering. I always turn to my wife and I say, Jill, we got one of two things happening.
We learned this year, by the way, that you have a little road rage issue. So,
and I'm learning to control it. But I'll say, Jill, instead of shouting and beeping, I'll say, you know what? The person in front of me is either a 120-year-old man that should not be on the road, or it's some person looking at their phone, texting, and driving 20 miles an hour, or swerving, or not stopping at a red light or blowing through a yield sign. So it's dangerous. It's not just that it's socially awkward and ruining communication in the world. It's dangerous. What if we had I guess pilots are on planes run on autopilot, but if you're driving a boat, right, in a crowded lake, or you're driving a car or riding a bike or a motorcycle or doing anything which requires visual acuity.
I like that word, acuity.
I knew you would. Don't do it. So I think the problem is it's as addictive as cigarettes, potato chips, and your single malt scotch.
So you think that the addictive properties of these apps actually stretch people to do unhealthy risks, like driving and texting? It's like the addiction of it is making them take undue risk.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Next mega trend in the U.S., and this we might get into some. We probably won't go crazy on this one, but there was a number of shootings in the U.S. in this year. So there was the most publicized one was the Parkland school shooting, where a bunch of kids got killed. Then there was the Pittsburgh synagogue here lately. There was also the Thousand Oaks, California bar shooting, and we did a show on Guns in America, so we're not going to go super deep on that, but I think we all agree that these are horrible events, but it's a really, really tough problem to solve in a free society. So without going super deep into the gun debate, any thoughts on 2018? Have we digressed when it comes to guns? Have we progressed at all? Have we learned anything?
All the above. We've digressed. We have not progressed. We've learned a lot, and we still have no answers. And you'll be the first one to tell me, you can't stop evil. If evil wants to do evil, they'll find a way around the laws. And I don't disagree, but
In a free society, yeah.
free
You can if
society.
you're in Nazi Germany or Mao's China. You can stop that stuff.
I thought a lot about this one because it's irritating, it's aggravating, and I'm sure if you're a victim of it or a family with a child, it's
life-changing.
It's life changing.
Right.
So now you're, maybe you're suicidal, and now you're going to, quit your job and go fight for the battle on how to fix this. I don't know what the answers are. I mean, we talked about, having hallway monitors have guns, or adding a policeman or a security guard to every school with a gun. That's very expensive and it's going to cost the taxpayers money, but maybe that's worth it. You've brought up
Concealed carry.
concealed carry, where somebody, but I don't know how you control that, and I don't know how you teach women and children how to use guns, even or old people. But yes, kind of like the movie Death Wish, right? Charles Bronson, or who's the guy in New York? Hinckley? No, not Hinckley.
Son of Sam? Not Son
No,
of
who's
Sam.
the guy riding on the subway?
Oh,
in the 80s.
Yeah, I forget. Bernard Getz.
Bernard Getz. Listen, Bernard Getz wasn't necessarily right, but they showed for that 6 to 12 month period, people were not doing what they were doing
Right.
because they were looking
Right.
over their shoulder where this guy Getz could take me out on the subway.
Right.
So in a way, Charles Bronson, that movie that people stopped, crime slowed down because people were afraid. Could he be the guy standing next to me? Could she be the girl standing next to me with a gun? I think there's an answer there, but I really don't know how you implement it, train everybody, and next thing you'll know, hey, we stopped mass school shootings, but then a kid shot a kid or a mom shot a mom by accident.
Right, because the teacher left the gun on the desk or something like that. But I think there's some risk to my thought. But my thought is that most of these shooters are trying to commit. I'll call it narcisside. I like to credit Adam Carolla because he used the term narcisside, which basically they want to commit suicide, but they want to do it in a narcissistic way and be, popular in their death. And, they go to where the targets are easy. And so most of these shootings are in areas where you're not allowed to have guns, so they know that. So they're easy targets. And my point would be take the certainty away from them. Let people that are already licensed to carry, let them carry. And if that happens to be a teacher who's licensed to carry, I'm not saying make teachers, have guns if they don't want to. People that want to carry, let them carry. And if the uncertainty of not knowing who's carrying when you're in a bar or in a concert or in a synagogue or in a school is there, and if my kid was in there, I'd want someone with a gun to try to fight back. So anyhow, it's a hard problem. It's a very emotional subject for most people in the country, and there's no easy answers, but it certainly was a lot of trauma inflicted on the United States this year with guns. All right, economy. In 2018, the economy was essentially very mixed. The stock market, as we tape this, is down another 500 points today. It's gone sideways or even a little bit lower this year. It's the first time in 10 years, by the way, that the market's gone down since the financial crisis. So stock market hasn't done great. Employment, on the other hand, is like at an all-time low. It's like 3.5% unemployment. 3.5%. And there's mixtures of obviously interest rates have gone up. So housing prices have slowed, auto loans are more expensive, student loans are more expensive. So it's been a mixed bag, and certainly the tariffs are in there as well. What are your thoughts on the economy? Where are we? I know you're not an economic professor, but give me your thoughts on the country this year with economics as the basis.
I kind of go by what I personally feel, positive or pain, and my friends, my family, my peer group, and everybody talks about how many job offers they get through LinkedIn or email or direct solicitation. It seems like everybody I know, has multiple offers every week, every month. So,
right,
and it's been like that for a while.
Right.
Most people's 401ks or college funds have done very well, but you're right. I've noticed in my daughter's college fund that I started several years ago, this is the first year, really in the last 6 months, where it's kind of gone flat, if not backwards. So that kind of bothers me. But, we've been around long enough to know one step backwards, two steps forward, one step backwards. It's been a steady incline, except for a couple of big hits, 2000, 2001, 2008. So I expect that whether it's 2019, 2020, we're going to get hit again, but it'll make a comeback, and eventually it'll be Dow 30,000, Dow 40,000.
Right.
So I would say I haven't noticed.
We're also in a high demand career as well. I mean, the high tech is growing even more than most jobs. And you're right, with 3.5% unemployment, it's just inevitable that wages will go up because people are bidding for scarce jobs.
Yeah, I don't know too many people, blue collar or white collar, out of work right now. At least in the circle, 1,000-person circle I have. I don't see too many people.
It's got to be more than that for you. I have like 3 people in my circle. You got like 2,500 at least.
That's I didn't want to brag. That's more accurate.
All right, so I agree with you pretty much on that one. The last one for the kind of mega trends is there's this Me Too movement. Now, we haven't done a show on this. We probably could have. We thought about that early on, but it's been a year of a lot of powerful people getting their comeuppance. You like that word,
comeuppance?
With regard to how they've treated women in the past, sometime in the very distant past, but also some recent stuff. So without going super deep, I think it's a great trend that the powerful men in particular have gotten checked. So I'm always for checking power. So you agree with that? And where's the Me Too movement go?
You have to agree with it. There's nothing more skeevy, obnoxious, and disgusting as a big, fat, ugly, powerful millionaire taking advantage of that and trying to take advantage of women, and also be arrogant about it or cover it up or try to turn it around on the women. I'm all for it. I love what I've seen against all these jerks,
this might be what ultimately does in Trump too. This subject
could be. I mean, we just saw, hey, Kareem Hunt, one of the best players in the NFL just got let go. I mean, think how many sports teams would let go their second best player because a video came out,
right?
And he didn't murder somebody, he didn't rape somebody, but he pushed her and he kicked her, and that's bad enough. So I think we're even reacting as a society across the board in most cases now.
And there's video everywhere. And I'm a big believer that if you're doing bad things, eventually it's going to get out. I mean, these arrogant jerks who think they can control information and people won't talk and they can manipulate situations and get away with it. It always comes out. So just do the right thing, and you don't have to worry about. You'll have a soft pillow.
That's a dilly-dilly.
It is a dilly-dilly. Okay, so let's, in our remaining 8-10 minutes, let's talk about our highlights from our show. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm very proud of the 38 episodes we did, but I think everyone, being honest, you have favorite shows. In my case, I would say episode 1 was a very monumental show for me because it was about free speech. I think that's a very important component of every society. We talked about that earlier with the dictatorship. So that was a key episode. Episode 4 for me, which was the Immediate Gratification Nation.
IGN.
That was I like that show a lot because, again, I think it's a big problem in our world. And you could even say that the personal finance show that we did just a couple shows ago kind of tied into the immediate gratification. So that was another highlight to try to help people that are in bad financial straits. And then I guess the last one I would like to highlight is the value of a college degree. It was episode 28. Listeners, if you want to go back and listen to that. That was our highest rated episode, by the way, most downloaded episode other than the Donald Trump episode. Because whenever you put Trump in the title, a lot of people listen. But that was a good episode, and it was a very important subject. A lot of people are struggling with college costs, and so I thought we did a good job with that. What were your fond memories there, Richie?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, just being able to sit across the room from you, I don't know that you made a mistake or had a bad episode at all. I mean, you were 38-0.
Now I know we're lying. You mean the zoning laws one? That tickled your fancy.
Here's the irony about that one. That was one of our funnier shows, though, because I knew it would be so boring to the audience. I stepped my humor game up. If you go back and listen to it, Don't listen to anything Mark says, but it's a very funny show. So I thought, hey, look, it was fun. There were a lot of great topics. Some good friends said, hey, I learned something, or you guys are good. You educate us on things we normally wouldn't talk about or read about in a way that is educational and entertaining. I liked and I enjoyed our episode on Big Bang versus Intelligent Designer. A lot of people.
Oh, you were the one that liked that episode.
I was the one. Was that one of our lower rated episodes? I enjoyed our two guest episodes. We had my buddy Brownie on to talk about road rage and his site Cardacy. We had your bro-in-law, Grammy, Chris Mooney on to talk about mental health and the impact and how to possibly treat it. I thought they were two great episodes, and I want to have more guests next year.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, look, I had fun. I don't even remember half the episodes. They were all mostly your ideas.
He probably didn't even listen to them. All right, so I did have some. I want to highlight some funny Idiot of the Week nominations that we had.
Although, wait,
and
before
maybe
you
some
do that,
closing segments. Yes,
I did write down 4. I don't know if we made it up or came out of the show, but 4 sayings that came out of the show that I had to take note of.
Cereal.
You're a serial literalist.
Yeah.
Right? So that one always makes me chuckle. Microaggressionism, you taught me that one.
Yeah.
Instant gratification nation, IGN, we just did. And one related to what good segue going into the Idiots of the Week review. You had so many where your common denominator line was, how polluted do you have to be?
Well, that's a good segue because I went back and I didn't listen to them, but I kind of mentally reviewed the Idiots of the Week nominations. And these are my 3 nominations for Idiots of the Year. So the first one, my favorite probably, was the guy who shoved an eggplant up to try to cure him from constipation.
That's my top 2.
The second one was your nomination, the guy who fried himself in a wok.
That's my top 2.
Wow,
as well.
we are simpatico. And my last one, if you get this one, I'd be really shocked. My last one was the couple that cut a drive-through window into their trailer for drug dealers.
That is a good one. But I'll tell you what I did. Now, normally you're the guy that does more research and a lot more.
Well, you have more natural talent. I have to work for mine.
Right, you have to work for it, so you do a lot more of the administrative work and all the stuff to help combat your boringness. So I stepped it up and I listened.
That one show you stepped it up. I remember that. Yeah.
What I'm saying, if I get a word in edgewise, I went back and listened to almost every beginning of every episode and went through all the Idiots of the Week. So
okay.
Let me run through something.
Go for it.
For some great memories. I mean, I started with 20, pared it down to 10, pared it down to 6, pared it down to 2. Let me just go over some of the ones that didn't make, say, the top 3 of the year. But we had Kenny Bachman, the West Virginia University student who partied so much he took an Uber back home to New Jersey. $1,600 Uber ride.
I remember that one, yes.
We had a New Zealand man who tricked a woman into having sex to prevent him from dying because he needed to sweat through only that way, and she agreed to it for 2 days. So, she was the idiot. We had Canisius Posey out of Florida who was swerving in a car with another woman, and they got pulled over by a cop, and the cop said, I smell pot. And she agreed that, yes, we were smoking pot, officer. Then they opened up her pocketbook and found cocaine. And she said, officer, I have no idea how it got there. It's a windy day. The windows were open. The cocaine had to blow in from the outside through the window into my pocketbook.
And I would say, how polluted do you have to be?
There was Joshua Milkovic of Ohio who walked into a Little Caesars pizza place.
I remember that.
And then drove away with his pizza on 3 tires and no front end or quarter panels to his car.
That was your favorite visual aid of the year.
Oh, that was great. There was Kenneth Dyke in Oregon who was arrested for sexually assaulting a horse after he broke into a stable looking for work on a farm, decided there was no work there, and thought that was the next best thing.
Goodness.
And then he told the police, yeah, I did it. I believe I did it because I was off my medications. We have the woman,
man.
Jacqueline Adis, who after one date from a guy she met on a dating site, sent him 65,000 text messages, including the following texts. Don't ever try to leave me. I'll kill you. I don't want to be a murderer. I hope you die, you filthy Jew. I'm like the new Hitler. Man, was he a genius. Oh, what would I do with your blood? I'd bathe in it. This was after one date.
She makes Glenn Close look like a keeper.
Oh, it's unbelievable. There was the man who was sentenced to a house arrest for robbing homes. While he was on his house arrest, started robbing more homes, but he had the GPS ankle bracelet on.
Right, sure.
They caught him. You had the woman who drank dog urine to clear her upper acne. That was
I
a
remember
winner.
that one.
You had Doug Kelly, who called the Putnam County Police in Florida to test his methamphetamine.
Yeah, that was a Facebook trap they set up, right? That was awesome.
Because he had a bad trip and he wanted to make sure that he wasn't duped with his drug deal.
I'm usually not pro cop, but that was a good one, coppers.
So here's my top three.
Okay.
So the top two we agreed on. Your others was close. But my number three was the Canadian zoo owners, Mr. and Mrs. Bose, who took a 1,500-pound Kodiak bear, drove into a Dairy Queen drive-through while he was in the back of their SUV. And there's a video showing the poor DQ worker nervously, gingerly handing ice cream to the bear.
Bear was 8 feet tall, too.
In the back of the, so that was my third. Yes, the 50-year-old man from China who was suffering from constipation and decided a way to kind of loosen it up was to shove a giant eggplant up his anus. And if you see the X-ray, it's literally it's a 12-inch cucumber.
It's touching his heart.
He punctured a lung. He could have had breakfast through the other way. Right?
He's got to be our idiot of the year. I mean,
very close.
The guy in the walk, though.
Very close to Mr. Limbaugh, known professionally as Black Dog, who was a spiritual magician, and he accidentally steamed himself to death in a stainless steel industrial wok while doing a ritual including rice, sweet corn, and sweet buns.
The sweet buns he definitely got. Well, I think we both agree that those are the top two. And so do we even have to make a call, or do we just nominate them both as the idiots of the year?
Well, in the old format of the NCAA football, you could have a co-NCAA champion. Now with the playoff, I think we have to choose one between those two.
I go eggplant, man, just because the visual aid with that, with the show and taking up his whole sternum and touching his heart.
Well, I'll tell you why I'll go with you, because unfortunately the guy died in the other example.
Yeah.
But picture... I mean, again, I've been constipated, and maybe you kind of, sit differently, or you shuffle your butt, or I could even see maybe, putting a small dill pickle a couple inches in to see if it could loosen it up. But to continue to push 2.5 feet,
a giant egg,
2.5 feet into your lungs is clearly the dumbest thing I heard all year.
All right, I forget your name in China, but you
Miyagi.
are the idiot of the year.
Mr.
You should be
Miyagi.
You should be proud. All right, and lastly, we're running along here, obviously, but some good closing segments. We won't go into them, but there are a lot of good Kroller wikis. We had the idiot laws on the books. That was fun. Idiot sports rules. We had fun with that, and I actually had fun with you and Grammy having a little contest trying to name the mental health movies, and you were going back and forth. I think he just got the last one.
He beat me on the last one.
He barely beat you, but that was a fun segment. So, any thoughts on our closing segments before we close out the show, Richie?
Hey, folks, for the folks that do even listen once in a while, we really appreciate your support. We'd like to make the show bigger. We'd like to expand it. We're working on ideas to expand it. So hopefully year 2 brings even more, bigger, better, exciting shows.
Yeah, and I totally agree. We've if you kind of come behind the curtain here a little bit. So our goal in year 1 was to kind of hone our craft, to provide the listeners with we call it edutainment, but essentially we're talking about big problems in society with humor. So we're trying to educate and entertain at the same time. We think we've provided a lot of value. It's been free to everyone. And for next year, we want other people in a broader audience to be able to derive that value and be entertained and edutained. So we're going to be talking to you about how that will happen after the new year. But in the meantime, make sure you plan to listen, as our first show of the new year is going to be talking about a New Year's resolutions and whether they're good or bad, and why New Year's resolutions historically don't last very long and aren't kept. Only a very small percentage of them are kept. And I think they're generally a good idea, don't you? I mean, making a goal and trying to keep to it, but no
Yes.
one does.
I think they're great, and I'll explain my whole shtick when we get to that.
Right. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how we can possibly have better results out of New Year's resolutions, and then we'll be sharing more about the 2.0 version of Are We Idiots in 2019 as we head into the new year. So as always, please remember, if what you see or hear sounds idiotic, then we're just the guys to help you sort it out. See y'all in 2019. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Are We Idiots Show. Please subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher so you can enjoy all episodes.
On my soul.